Hey guys, have you ever had it happen where you're hiking along and enjoying the day, just pleasantly soaking up your surroundings, maybe lost in thought, and suddenly you look down and realize that the trail has disappeared? It just petered out to nothing when you weren't even paying attention? Well, today I'm going to give you 10 tips to help you find the lost trail, get you back on track, and get you headed out to your destination. Hi guys, I'm Dan, and these videos are all about helping you to enjoy your experience of backpacking. If you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing, and then you don't miss out on future episodes. And thanks for watching. So this happened to me recently, that I was hiking in the Selway Bitterroot Wilderness and just cruising along enjoying life, and then all of a sudden the trail was just gone. It had dwindled to nothing. And it's tempting when that happens to want to just think about, I think it's over there, and head in that direction, and then you find out that wasn't it, and then you make another choice and head in that direction, and pretty soon you've made 2 or 3 or 4 turns, and by then you're a long ways off from where the actual trail is. So that's the first tip, is don't panic. The best thing to do in that situation first is just to not get excited or freak out about it, and trust in your own ability to figure out where you're at and to find the trail again. Second, the next thing you want to do is backtrack to the last place where you were sure you were on the trail. A lot of times it's only 10 or 12 paces back, and if you just, instead of stumbling forward, if you go back to where the trail was clear, then sometimes you can see where you went wrong. A lot of times there will be a deadfall in the trail, and maybe the water course caused a little bit of a diversion that looked like the trail, and then when you look back and you're paying more attention, you can see that. Or it might be a game trail that you went off on, and getting back to where the main trail is, a lot of times then it becomes really clear where you need to head. So first thing, don't panic. Second, backtrack back to where the trail was the most clear. One thing to look for, we often talk about blazes on the trees. Sometimes those can be hard to find, but here's one old blaze, and you can see how it's got a mark up top and then a long slash, sort of a dot and a dash, or you might think of it as a upside down exclamation point. And that's important to look for both of those, because trees can naturally cause a formation that looks like the bottom part of that. When they have a disease or an injury of some kind, they can heal over and it looks like the slash part, but there's nothing in nature that makes the dot and the slash. That is an example of a natural scar, and it's not a blaze. You can see there's no mark above it. However, that is an actual blaze. And if you can't find blazes, another good thing to look for is cut off logs like that. Again, nothing in nature makes a flat cut off log like that, and so somebody's been through here years ago to clear the trail, and usually that cut log points right to the trail, because they'll cut on either side and then roll that out of the way. So there's another one. Another less common method of indicating where the trail is by the use of a trail marker. Just a piece of metal nailed to the tree, usually with bright colors. A lot of times those will be up high, as this one is probably about 10 or 12 feet off the ground. And that's because these tend to be used more on trails that are frequented in the winter. So if you are hiking or snowshoeing on 3 or 4 feet of snow, then that's going to be more at eye level. Another thing to look for is there's kind of a corridor of trees that doesn't occur naturally. Usually you won't see much of a straight line like that in the woods. There's going to be meanderings and trees in the way. But if you're looking around for where to go, especially if there's snow covering the trail, so you can't go by that, a nice column of trees like that is a good thing to look for. Sometimes you might find yourself in a situation like this where you enter a meadow and the trail that seemed very clear suddenly disappears. There you can see the trail leading up to that little ford, but as soon as I stepped across the creek, there doesn't seem to be any sign of it. So your best bet in that situation is to scan the far side of the meadow, looking for places where the trail enters back into the woods. And if nothing else, shoot for the straightest shot across the meadow. Now here, sorry if that's right in the sun, you can't see it, but you can see that the trail does pick up again. And it's fairly easy to see once you get in line with it. It's hard when you're looking across, but when you get in line with it, then it becomes pretty clear. Another way to find lost trails is with the use of rock cairns. Now, some folks have decided that they're contrary to leave no trace policies, and they've started dismantling them. Certainly the ones that are just hobbies that people put up randomly are not so good, but please don't dismantle the ones like this that are marking the trail. That would be pretty important if this was snow covered, which it probably usually is, being a high mountain pass. Here's another example of a useful cairn showing where the trail enters the woods again after that ford. A GPS can be very helpful in finding the trail, but maybe not in the obvious way that you might think. For example, this is saying that I'm right on the trail, but as you can see, the trail isn't anywhere to be found here. The reason for this, it would be nice if you could just stand where the GPS says the trail is and find it that way. But unfortunately, civilian GPS is engineered to be inaccurate. So at best, it's only locates you within about 10 or 15 feet. And in heavy tree cover like this, it can be as bad as 30 feet. And that's to avoid it being put to nefarious purposes. But there is still a way that the GPS can be useful, which is that even though this doesn't tell me that I'm on the trail, it can tell me, sorry, I'm trying to get that in focus here. It can tell me that the trail goes to the right and left there, and I can use that to find the trail just by moving in the direction of the trail. So what that means is moving in that direction, and if you are outside of that range of accuracy, so if you're 30 or 50 feet off, then and the GPS is pointing in the other direction, then you know the trail is in the other direction. And the trick there is that the trail can be difficult to see when you're looking across it, so you want to be looking right and left down where the trail would be. And then a lot of times, even though you were having trouble seeing across, this is a pretty clear trail that I'm demonstrating on, but you can tell how much easier it is to see when you're looking down the trail. So using the GPS not as a pinpointing of the trail, but just to give you an idea of in which direction the trail lies. Here's another example of using the GPS to figure out where you need to be. There was a possible ford across this creek just a little bit ago, but I wasn't sure if that was supposed to be the ford or not. And there was a fairly good trail heading off on this side of the creek, so I took off this way. But the trail that was very clear suddenly became less clear, so that made me suspicious that maybe this was not the main trail. So by checking the GPS, I can tell pretty clearly that the trail is on the other side of the stream there. Now the GPS unit, that arrow indicates which way it's pointing. So if I'm holding it flat and turning around, then it's pointing exactly in the direction I need to go to get back on the trail. So I just head in that direction, looking right and left to spot the trail when I get across it. And here's the ford that I missed, and looking all the way across there, you can just see where the trail enters the woods again, just to the left of that upturned tree. Well, speaking of losing the trail, I was cruising along through this burn area. This is a little older burn than yesterday's, and I spotted this burn CDT sign, but just kind of smiled and kept going. Thankfully I checked my GPS just a little ways down that trail, and it said that I'd missed the trail, so I came back up, because usually those CDT signs are placed at a junction. So I thought I'd come back up to where that was and take a look around. And sure enough, here's the blaze. And you can see the trail on up that hillside there. And it was only then that I looked down on the ground and saw the sign. So, lesson to self, good to be aware and pay attention. Another thing you might try is to act like a trail builder, and by that I mean ask yourself, if I was building the trail through here, where would I put it? I was in a situation last year in the Wind River Range where I was in this downpour rain and hustling down a trail. It came to a ford, and the river was washed out, so it wasn't clear where it was supposed to go on the other side. I crossed over, and there was a clear path where a lot of people had trampled down some tall grass, and I headed off in that direction. Well, that wasn't the right way. I pretty much came to a cliff and realized I had to backtrack. So I went back to that place where I had first crossed the river and took a careful look around, and then I saw there was a clear bench about 30 feet up, and I scrambled up to that bench, and sure enough, that's where the trail was. So just take that a few minutes to ask yourself, where should the trail be, and then take a look there. The last tip that I want to share with you is sort of a worst case scenario concept. 99% of the time, if you follow the tips that we've talked about already, you're going to find the trail and you'll be just fine. But what about that rare situation where you've searched all around and you just can't find the trail? How are you going to get home? Well, there's a great simple rule that you can use in that situation, and that rule is always follow water downhill. So if you think about little streams come together to form rivers, rivers come together to form bigger rivers, and eventually that water always brings you back to civilization. So I have kind of a joke with myself in that situation that I'm not lost, I just don't know where I am. And what I mean by that is usually if I've done my homework and studied my maps and paid attention along the way, so I have a pretty good idea of where I am, I also know pretty clearly which way I need to go to get back to the trailhead. And usually it's following some watercourse downhill that is going to get me back to where I need to be. It can be a little tricky to bushwhack through the woods, and you probably don't want to be right on the edge of the stream because that's where the brush is the thickest. But if you hold back, 10, 20, maybe 30 yards from the stream and keep following that, that will eventually get you back to where you need to be. Also, if you think about it, most trails do follow the watercourse because that is the easiest path for the trail to follow too. So a lot of times after maybe a quarter mile or even a half a mile of bushwhacking, you can stumble back onto the trail again and get moving a little more quickly. So in that situation, it's not an emergency, it's just an annoying time suck. And if you are persistent and determined, you can get back to where you need to be. So these are just some ideas that I have come up with, and I'm guessing that in listening to this video, probably some of you have other ideas that you would like to share that would be useful. If so, please do that in the comments section, and then we can all benefit from combined wisdom of the community. So if you found this video helpful, please hit the like button, and don't forget to subscribe so that you don't miss out on future episodes. And thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Take care.